because those are the two corners that we really have for the future. But the main reason why I called in was because Dan Campbell deserves all the credit in the world for turning this thing around. But somebody who doesn't get enough credit is Sheila. Sheila hired, I think, what was her favorite player in Chris Spielman. And Chris Spielman's voice, I think, has really been underrated in keeping Dan Campbell around. Dan Campbell got hired in before Brad Holmes. It would have been really easy for Brad Holmes to then say, after a 3-13 season and a 1-6 start, Dan Campbell's not my coach. He's not my guy. I didn't pick him. It would have been really easy to create some division at the top. But Sheila and Chris have really honed that in, and everything seems to be clicking on like everybody's just on the same page at all times.
And thanks for the call, Joe. I appreciate it. And if you listen to the show, I'm a big fan of what Sheila Ford Hamp has done as owner of this football team. And I think you hit the nail on the head. What she did right off the bat, bringing in Chris Spielman. And Chris isn't the guy that wants to rock any boats. He wants to stay behind the scenes, but he's also going to shoot you straight. So if she said, how would you build a team? And I don't know if this conversation took place, but I feel like this did. How would you build a team? How would you change the culture here? You were part of a different era of football here when the team was good. And what do we do? And, without tooting his own horn, I think what they've done is built a team in the mold of Chris Spielman. They found a coach who coaches like Chris Spielman. They found a GM who goes out there and GMs like a Chris Spielman. And they're finding players that are Chris Spielman all over the place. Guys that just fit the bill. What do, Kang? They love football. And I think that move, the first move, if that was one of your first moves, was to go bring him back into the fold, was brilliant.
Chris Spielman's absolutely one of the more underrated, players or people that played a role in the turnaround of this organization, this team. I generally believe most owners, not all, most owners want to win, okay? And they get too much blame and too much credit because all they're basically doing is they're trying to hire the right people to make the real football decisions. If they put their belief in someone and that person makes all the wrong decisions, then that owner's considered a bad owner. But what the owner really do is just entrust that person to make the football decisions for them. Sheila got it right by asking Chris Spielman for his help. And it looks like everything Chris Spielman's done, for her with his advice and everything has worked out great because now they've lined up, they reworked the contract of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell so they're in sync with each other. They were a year off, remember? Now they got the new extensions. Now they're in sync. They're tied together, Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. And they did that on purpose because they loved the way these two work together, and it was all under Chris Spielman's advisement.
Yeah, I loved it at the time, and I don't know if we're ever going to fully know what his involvement has been with this organization because he doesn't really want to talk about it, which is fine. Likes being that guy, staying behind the scenes, and maybe it was just getting this team in the right direction, and then he can step back and truly not have to be involved anywhere near as much because it's definitely going the right direction. But getting Dan Campbell, who they hired the coach before they hired the GM, keep that in mind too. And I'm just, when you go back in this timeline, look at how this team has been built. It really is kind of mind-boggling how quickly they turned things around with the hand that they were dealt, taking over an organization that was decimated by the previous coach and previous general manager, and then to be told a couple weeks that you're in on the job that the star quarterback wants out, and now you've got to find a way to trade him and make sure you get fair value for him. And then you take on a quarterback that everybody's like, what are you doing? He's a failed quarterback. They didn't want him in Los Angeles. And all the things that have happened since and seeing where they're at, it's amazing when you think back just how much this team has changed. Some more ticket text coming in regarding Dan Campbell. No, Campbell doesn't get the credit he deserves. Brad Holmes gets tons of praise. Even the Fords get more credit. Great point, Kang. That's from Kyle in Plymouth. I don't think Sheila gets as much credit as she deserves. I bring it up all the time. I feel like I'm the champion of her cause, and it's nice to hear some other people call in and say it. But I think, generally it's Brad Holmes. But Kang, your guy is Dan Campbell, and he should.
Well, I just feel like he brings so much more, like, as far as culture, because the culture was not good here, clearly. And he was hired before Brad Holmes, because one of the main reasons was probably because they're like, dude, I can't pass up on this guy. Chris Spielman, Rod Wood, Sheila Ford Hamp, whoever's in that room at that time go, you know what, we don't have a GM yet, but I want this guy to be my head coach. And if whoever we hire after him to be the GM, he's going to have to deal with it or he's going to have to be in line with us, because this is the type of guy we want coaching our team. And that's why when I found out today, I read the headline that Dan Campbell's not going to be there for the rookie minicamp, I just thought long-term, like, wow, that would suck to not have him for a regular season game.
Yeah.
Like he's that important to this team, I feel like. And it's not just off the field. It's on the field. And people may think he's crazy with his Dan Gambles, but everything is strategic. Everything he makes. And you know why they've worked so much? Because he knows exactly when to do them or when to call them, right? That's not just by accident.
No, they're all calculated risks, and there's a risk involved, but he likes the chances, and that's gambling, right? But it's
smart. A gamble, but it's a calculated risk.
But it's a calculated risk that might be in your favor. It's like, it's like, are you going to double down on an 11 or not?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily agree every time he does it, but I understand it, and there is reason behind it. He's just not doing it just to do it.